Welcome back to the SimTech podcast. I'm Craig, and today we're in for another spontaneous one. No script, no me, just a bunch of simulation enthusiasts talking about what we don't talk about enough. Confederates in simulation. You know, those behind-the-scene legends, or sometimes centre-stage performers, who can absolutely make or break a scenario. Whether they're playing a nurse, a relative, or even a disruptive team member, Confederates bring a human element that mannequins just can't replicate. So today, you'll be hearing some thoughts on what makes a good Confederate, the role we play in prepping them, and why sometimes less acting is more.
Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast today. We're going to be talking a little bit about being a Confederate, what that means to us, our experiences of it, and essentially how to improve at that. A little bit about myself. My name's Toffer. I'm one of the F2 teaching fellows, so I've not got that much experience of being a Confed, but I do have lots of experience of doing simulation as a trainee. Is it okay if we talk a little bit about who's with me today? So we've got Frances to my left.
Yes, hello, my name's Frances. I am a clinical teaching fellow. I had the same job as you, Toffer, last year, so I had a little bit of experience of sim then and a little bit this year as well. Probably less experience than our other two guests.
Lovely. And we've also got Sarah.
Hi there, I'm Sarah. I'm one of the clinical educators, but my background is nursing, and part of our role is to support the F1s, F2s at the Sim Centre, and being a large part of that is working as a Confederate.
Lovely. And we've also got Shannon with us today.
Hi everybody, I'm Shannon. I'm the simulation teaching fellow and I've been in that role for 2 years, which is sadly coming to an end. But over those 2 years, been involved in lots and lots of simulations I played the role of a confed many times.
Lovely. So a little bit about what a confed is. There's somebody who is scripted into the simulation. They often play a specific role, such as a nurse or a doctor, and often add realism, try to provide information, and can offer unique challenges to allow the scenario to be a bit more engaging for the trainee.
I like to say that we're actually the puppet, and then you've got the control room, so we are the puppet to whoever's in the control room.
Absolutely agree with that. You play such a vital role. Would it be okay if we talked a little bit about your experiences when you first started confeding, a little bit about your first times, if you will?
I mean, personally, the first time I was confed, so obviously from medical school, you've been in the simulation suite with the spotlight on you, and it was slightly terrifying. Quite large groups would watch you all at once. And it always felt quite a scary experience. So going into it, it was quite scary going back into the sim suite. And we've talked a bit about this before, but just that idea that actually you're almost there to facilitate things and you're in the background now. So after a few experiences of it, you can relax. But I remember the first time finding it quite daunting because you think, what if I don't know where a blood bottle is? Where can the camera see? What if I'm wanting to pretend to insert a cannula and I make it really obvious I'm not inserting a cannula from the wrong angle or something like that? So probably overthinking everything a little bit, but just making sure you do the absolute best you can to make it run smoothly for the students or for the doctors, the participants, whoever it may be. So I was a bit nervous the first time to hopefully be as efficient as possible, and that was my first experience.
And I think for me, before you go into the sim, you can have a look at that the brief, the scenario, and so you can see what sort of role you play. Because I've been, an A&E nurse in the past, I can kind of put myself back there. But you also wear an earpiece, so you've got the people again in the control room, kind of saying, right, okay, so if you take the temperature, they'll tell you the temperature. If you do the BMs, and so they'll kind of jog you, or if you see a trainee that's struggling, they'll prompt you, right, why don't you act in this way? So you're not on your own as such, you are given prompts as well.
Definitely. Do you feel like your experiences as being an A&E nurse gave you quite a breadth to play a few different roles quite well?
Yeah, I think with the scenarios, they're so varied, you can actually choose when you do your brief before the sim kind of class comes through, that who's going to be the best person for the role, who's got the most experience, who's got the most confed, and that's when the teamwork comes into play. So it could be on a bowel obstruction, and I've never done bowel obstruction, so I wouldn't be the one putting my name there first. But, you know, a gunshot wound or something like that, then I'd feel more comfortable. So it is about looking at your team and pulling on the resources and the skills of the other team members.
I think it's a role that we probably take for granted as well, especially as somebody that's doing a lot of timetabling for different simulation days. And it's a role that I would probably think, oh yeah, that's an easy role, anybody can slot into that. But actually it's a fundamental role, and it's fundamental in order for that sim to progress forward, because, you know, you've got your lead behind the screen who's directing your confed, and it's their place they're the ones actually in the room that's driving that scenario forward and supporting that participant. So it's really important. But then, I don't know, Frances, we don't train you.
No.
No.
No. I think what was really helpful for me is watching a few people do it. So even you, Shannon, have such a relaxed way about you when you are confed, and that you realise, okay, it's not life and death, it's okay. And it's just having that relaxed approach. So seeing a couple of people, experienced people doing it, gave you the idea of, okay, that's the kind of demeanour, that's the energy I need to have in that role. You don't have to be the most efficient person in the world, even if you are actually a bit relaxed. That relaxed energy kind of hopefully transfers a little bit onto the participant and makes them feel at ease if you're a little bit calm. So I think the energy you bring as confed, just saying about the importance of the role, that can actually ease the scenario for them a little bit if you've got that calmness about you. Yeah.
For me, when I'm confed, I get really nervous about procedures that I haven't done for a long time, like taking blood gases or something like that. So I like to have the scenarios well in advance. So if I need to do a procedure, I can actually have like a little kind of, you know, aid memoir or go through it. Some of the challenges are you don't get the scenario until the night before, do you? Or
Well, that's very much being directed at me there. I'm sorry. There's a lot of last minute changes, isn't there? And,
there is, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
even if you've prepared for something might happen on the day and you've got to jump into a different role.
Absences and
Yeah.
And that's why it's important, isn't it, to have a whole kind of raft of experience and skill set for each scenario.
And I think also that's where it comes to whoever's leading that scenario. So your lead needs to have a really good understanding of your role, your confed. So like, I find myself jumping into scenarios literally at the drop of the hat, not knowing what scenario I'm walking into, and I'll say to the lead, right, I don't know what's going on, you just need to keep me right, give me a quick synopsis. And I want them to talk to me throughout. And so where that falls down is when your lead necessarily isn't doing that, and you're kind of trying to remember your best way through the scenario. So it is a general, like, this team is a real team effort, isn't it?
Yeah. So I know when we were offline, Shannon, you were saying, because we were on about scenarios that you didn't like, and you're not particularly fond of conflict.
I don't like conflict, no. I like to think I'm a nice person, but I generally find it really hard to portray that not pleasant person, and and I know it's not me and you're acting, but actually it's really hard for me to not be very nice to a patient or not very nice to a doctor. But then that also brings you a challenge so you've got the brief as the confed, I don't know, you're a stressed, busy nurse, you want this patient to be discharged, you just want to get on with your day, there's nothing wrong with them. But then if your participant comes in and they're struggling, you then have to flip it, don't you? Because your actual role in that scenario is to guide them through the scenario, so you then have to try and help them whilst you're also being very unhelpful.
Because the scenarios aren't designed for them to fail, and they're not assessed. It's just them learning in a safe environment, isn't it? It's like that, what do you call it, that psychology safety?
Psychological safety.
Yeah. But then, you know, you're also playing on human factors as well, aren't we? So any nurse can have a busy shift or have, you know, that things going on at home that they'll bring into work. And so I think sometimes if we're struggling as a confed, it makes it more realistic as well. Yeah.
And it's just getting that balance, isn't it? That's because there's like your balance of actually acting out, but then also you've got that technical balance that Frances has been talking about, you know, like getting worried about, am I hiding from the camera angle to get this cannula in? You know, what do I do when I put a blood pressure cuff on? So there's that whole balance of that skill set. So there's like two different things going on, isn't there?
And also, I suppose one of the other challenges is, say the participant's talking to you, but someone's talking at your earpiece at the same time feeding you some information. You almost need to let the person in the control room know that you can hear what they're saying without actually verbally responding to them, so it looks like you're talking to no one, and breaking the simulation kind of reality for the student or the participant. So that's another little, so it's kind of a funny, you're almost a bit of a central point, aren't you, with information in and out. So it's also another little fun challenge just to mention, is that thing of where you have to kind of discreetly scratch your head, or we often do, don't we, like a head scratch to the control room, so they know, scratch your head if they've asked for a blood pressure, so that you can just discreetly acknowledge what they've said, so things like that. It's all just a little bit of a balancing act, isn't it?
Sometimes what happens though is you say scratch your head, and I scratch my head before you've even said what.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh yeah, they've done this. And I'm like, oh no, they haven't.
No, they've done that.
Whoops.
Yeah.
I suppose because setting this the scene as well, you've got the Confed in the room and you've got the cameras on, but then you've got another group in a different room that's watching. So you've got to be mindful if a doctor is ringing a senior to get advice or doing the S-bar handover, and the Confed is with the patient, but the patient's speaking, you've got to like quieten it down, because obviously the people that are observing can only see, hear kind of one conversation at a time. So you're controlling how the room goes as well. And another top tip we give is that when the doctors come in with a stethoscope, because they're wearing a mic so the others can hear in the room, is ask them not to wear the stethoscope because that interferes with a mic. But you're not taught these here, it's just
get them to remove the lanyard.
tips, the lanyard,
Wrestle pens off them. They're not allowed pens in the sim suite because then they write all over the adjuncts, and then you get really angry because you want to reprint them. So.
And what's the top tip you give them before they go in? About the housekeeping and what not to do when they're wearing the mic? Don't go in the toilet with your mic on.
Okay. Well, we've been trying to drop that one, haven't we? Because when our sim techs are really good, they don't actually turn them on till they're in the room. Mm-hmm. When our sim techs are really good.
I mean, you've mentioned a few of the technical aspects that you've kind of struggled with there. I think particularly one that's quite unusual that you probably wouldn't have dealt with before is the fact that you're getting two streams of information from the student and then obviously from the control room. Have you come up with any ways of helping process that information? Obviously you mentioned kind of scratching your head. Any ways to kind of keep that reality of sim?
From my limited experience of it, I suppose, is trying to clock what they've said in the control room, but whatever the student in front of you or the participant in front of you needs is the priority. So you register in your head, okay, they've asked me, have they done a blood pressure? But they're talking to me at the same time. I'm going to acknowledge them, and when I get a chance, I'm going to wander off to hopefully a part where I can't be seen by the camera and just nod at them through the control room. So I know the odd time kind of John, who obviously also has worked here for a long time, he'll write on a piece of paper and hold it up to the glass. But again, I think that comes with his experience of knowing what is and isn't in shot.
Yeah, it's knowing where the blind spots are, and those of us that are here day in day out, we know where the blind spots are in the room. But I appreciate that you guys that just come and help now and again, that you don't have that bit of knowledge, and it's really useful to know where you can go and hide, even if it's because the people in the control room are being very loud or are being a little bit trying to be funny, and you're trying to keep a straight face. If you just
professional,
that's the word. If you need to go to a blind spot and shot them an evil look through the mirrored glass, being like, "Shut up."
Yeah. So my tip is that I always have a piece of paper with a pencil, because you're not allowed pens in there. So when one of the doctors or seniors are talking to me, I'll have my head down, but actually I'm listening to the control room as well. So then I can jot down what the control room's saying, like BP or BM, but then I'm actually listening to the doctor as well. So then, like what you said, Francis, the trainee, the doctor is your priority. But then, so I don't forget what the control room is saying, I'll make notes as well. And it's just about picking it up, isn't it? The more you do, the more you get comfortable at doing it. And then sometimes you have to wing it, don't you? You're like,
yeah.
And actually, if you get comfortable, like I said, I was initially terrified. It slowly became marginally more comfortable at winging it and slightly flagging things when you have to, or say you don't have something in the room and you pop your head out the door and say, "Oh, can we get a such and such?" knowing that there's nobody out there, but it maintains the kind of reality of the sim in that moment for the participant. So just it's a bit of improvisation, isn't it, really? So it's how comfortable are you with that? If you're coming at it being like an actor, like John, or you're a lot more comfortable in that scenario, but then also a bit of experience and having a bit of fun with it, isn't it?
Who do you shout down the corridor for? What name do you shout? Because I'm always shouting a Julie or a Jenny.
Oh, sister.
It's like, Julie, go get the ECG machine.
And I think about being organised as well. So you know that if you're going to be asked to do a cannula, you can't really put a real cannula in. So you cut it short, don't you? The actual tube, and you can even put it on the dressing as well. So if you turn your back to the camera and then you show them that you put your tourniquet on, you wash it, but then so it looks like you're doing the procedure, and then whoa, the cannula's in.
Yeah.
Or the NG tube as well, because you don't really want to be putting a real one in.
No.
So yeah.
And getting it right really adds to like the immersion, and that's what sets it apart for doing kind of low fid sim. Low fid sim, you're just going to rest a cannula on the arm, aren't you? You're not actually going to stick it down, pretend you do it. And it does make a difference. It makes a difference, not necessarily I'd say, so it does to the participant in the room, but for those that are watching it on the screen in the other room.
For the immersion
it really helps them become immersed in that environment as well.
Yeah. And I think as well, when you say, right, okay, that's done, end of scenario, I kind of still play that confed, well, thank you very much, doctors, for coming and helping today, and then push them out the room rather than say, right, well done, guys, we're done, because then it keeps them in that submersion for when they go in and have the debrief.
I mean, that touches a little bit upon psychological safety there, and kind of keeping things in a way that trainees feel comfortable. How do you feel if a trainee is particularly struggling, either with kind of very clearly anxious or maybe not sure what to do? How do you feel as confed about if there's any techniques you've developed to help prompt them?
I think that it's variable, isn't it? Sometimes, actually more often than not, I think the confed picks up in the room whether somebody's struggling before the lead does. And actually the confed will automatically kind of preempt the lead saying to give them a prompt. And, generally we start it really subtly, don't we, up to, they feel a bit warm. Okay, let's take a temperature. So I think with experience, you just be kind of automatically get into that role, don't you? And then, we do have situations where then the lead will come in and do some really positive, really good role modelling for that struggling participant. Because the idea is we want to get them through the scenario so they can achieve those learning objectives. So it's not a test, is it?
No, but when I was on A&E, we obviously had the turnover of new doctors. So we were doing that in real life. They were saying, right, I'm going to prescribe morphine. Are you sure you want to prescribe that morphine, doctor? Shall we have a look at alternatives beforehand? So it's like the doctors need to be accountable and responsible, but actually we're there in real life giving them a hand, and that's the same what happens in sim. Isn't it? Are you sure you want to do? Should we try something else first? What do you think?
Yeah. So
it's like I've done it in real life, and it's just the same in sim. Really, you're just kind of guiding them down the right path, but they're the ones that's having to think and make the I suppose it's like coaching, isn't it? You're not giving them the answers. That you're their critical thinking friend, and it's about prompting them on what they could do. Yeah.
Yeah, and in reality, you're working with a team where, especially as an F1 or something, you probably will certainly have probably the least experience of everybody there. So drawing on that experience and guidance is realistic, isn't it? So totally appropriate if needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as yourselves being confeds, have there been times where perhaps you've been struggling or lost, and how have you coped with that? Because especially some of our more chaotic sims, which are maybe a bit more acute and perhaps a bit more distressing, I can appreciate there's a lot of balls to juggle there.
I think sometimes it's gone very, very wrong. And that's a very fair statement. And I think, examples being you are in that scenario leading it, and you realise actually once the scenario started that, one of your confeds doesn't have an earpiece on, and therefore they can't hear you. So you then really struggle to drive that scenario forward. And I think we've had a couple of occasions that's happened, or they've got an earpiece in but it's not working. And then you kind of at this like roadblock sometimes of being like, actually, how do I get this going in the direction I need it? Do I need to send somebody else in with the story?
But do you not think that like adds to it though? Adds to the scenario, because it's going to happen in real life, isn't it?
Well, I think it depends. It depends what the scenario. Like we've had some where you're as one of the confeds, you're fully scrubbed up for theatre.
Yeah.
And like, actually, you need your surgeons to be saying something to be prompt in that scenario to go forward, and they're not saying it because they don't have their earpiece on, or they're like me. This is the first time I was a confed, I didn't turn the earpiece on. I couldn't hear anything. Well, it was switched on, but I hadn't turned the volume up, and it wasn't till like right at the end that I realised that's why I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. See, one where I kind of I didn't have a clue was like one of the doctors that said, "Oh, can you put an NG tube in?" And on the scenario that it was an experienced nurse, but I didn't because I'd not done it in real life. I didn't have a clue. So I was like, right, doctor, you're going to forgive me. I'm just doing a locum shift. So this was me improvising. I'm doing a locum shift for the first time on the ward and I haven't got a clue. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to do that. So it was just thinking on the spot as well and improvising, which is what would happen in real life. So, yeah.
Yeah. Challenge for me, the one thing I remember is we've got a patient, a GI bleed scenario, and obviously there's the planning with the syringe and when the blood's going to come out, and you're thinking in your head, you know, right, okay, does this look believable? You know what I mean? Is this going to look believable? Equally, I don't want to get fake blood on my trainers, you know, so there's kind of more logistical things where, you know, things like that, just to make sure it still seems real and things, so... But usually the team have set up something fab, so it usually is, but it's just being mindful of when's it going to come out, okay, when do we need to unleash that part of the scenario.
And trying to choose a doctor with white trainers on, that is like, that is my goal. I'm looking down, like if I'm the patient, I've got my syringes under the blanket, I'm like, right, when am I going to go? Shall I go for the white trainers? Or another one we've done where I've had fecal vomit, but then you spray, like vomit spray in the room. So when they come in, they get that smell. But when you're preparing the room, it's like, it's like, oh, it's real. It's real.
I think we've spoken about quite a lot there, and rounding up, there's been some really valuable things that we've talked about. What do you think your guys' top tips are for somebody who maybe it's their first time confeding or just essentially trying to make things a little bit more fun for when they do it?
Personally, I would say have a really good read of the scenario brief and have an idea of the obs in your head so that if things did get too busy in the control room, you've kind of got them. And obviously with your medical knowledge and things, given the scenario, you can usually improvise them to a degree, or if you flick through them, you think, right, they're a bit hypotensive, they're a bit tacky or something like that, you can often just about remember that if it did fall through, you know, hearing things. And also, you know, from my personal learning would be to try and go in with that little bit of, the world won't end if this goes badly. Have a little bit of fun with it. But in order to have that fun, familiarise yourself with the scenario, the details, the date of birthy bits like that, and also go around the room and go in all the drawers. Where's my fake cannula? Where's my fake blood bottle? Real blood bottles, but you know, where is everything that I'm definitely going to need? Just so you know, you're not thrown in at that deep end and looking around headless chicken style. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, get to know your room and, you know, knowing your scenario, know what adjuncts you need and what might not be there. So like before that scenario starts, make sure that you've got everything that you need, because quite often what happens is, you know, we might be leading the scenario before, so then somebody else has set up the room for you and then you're jumping straight into that confed role, but actually something that you need isn't there. And it just adds that little bit of delay of somebody, you know, you're like, oh, you might have to shout down the corridor for somebody to go get something. But what actually happens is somebody in the control room is frantically trying to find something to come and like leave it outside the room for you to grab. So yeah, just, you know where everything is, but know what you need in that scenario itself.
Yeah, mind everything what you've said, be prepared, have the knowledge of the room, but also make sure you observe other people doing that role beforehand and have like a code sign with the control room. So if there's something wrong, you can put your hand up or go to the glass or just so they know that you're struggling or you'll need a bit of help as well. So
ask where the blind spots are.
ask them for the blind spots.
Top tips.
Definitely.
Yeah, ask where the blind spots are, because there are. In every sim suite.
And it's a bit of a godsend, isn't it? Because sometimes you just, if they're doing well, you need to be busy. And it's knowing where to be busy without being clearly doing nothing, you know. So I often go rummaging through the cupboards, pretending to be busy, but then I'm often in my head, can they see me? Can they see? Know your blind spots. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's me with a piece of paper. I'm like pretending to write notes when everything's going on around me because I'm not needed. But if I'm still there with a camera on, I'm just pretending to write patient notes.
And if you're being busy at the trolley, rummaging through the doors, tidy it up. Save us a job. Get the anti-back wipes. Give it a rub down. Yeah. Because those trolleys get a mess so quickly because there's so many different people rummaging through them. But yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Top
I'm
tip.
being busy.
Mm-hmm.
And just to round things up and to end on quite a nice positive note, what's been your favourite experience of confeding? Have there been any particularly funny times? Any times that you felt really proud of yourself? Anything like that?
Oh, that's true.
That is, yeah. I think for me, being the helpful nurse, and when you got a newly qualified doctor coming in for the first time, and you can see they're nervous. So if you bring a little bit of humour and you're really positive, then that rubs off on them. But the faces after they've completed the scenario, or they'll go away with like, right, I need to read this policy, I need to read this guidance, and it just, you can tell that the doctors are just going to take what they've learned in sim and use it in real time.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you're playing a nice confed, that's probably my favorite. I really enjoy being a confed. I think it's good fun, and it really helps, like, when you get that deep dive into scenarios and stuff. But yeah, no, I like to be a nice confed. I don't like being a conflict, shouty, abrasive confed.
I think, not to say exactly the same thing, but honestly exactly the same thing. Once I'd eased into the role, it's actually very nice for them because they know I think they get the sense if you're calm, it does rub off on them, and you can be like, yeah, and kind of just affirm what they're saying or whatever it might be, or be of help to them, and it gives them that little bit of confidence, that little boost, and that's very satisfying and rewarding to know you're contributing to that positive experience for them. So yeah, I'd probably agree, actually. Yeah.
Cool.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for your time to everybody. We've talked about some really interesting things I don't think we spoke about before, so thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And that wraps up today's Off the Cuff episode all about Confederates in simulation. Whether they're a seasoned role player or just a colleague helping out, the way we guide and support them can make a huge difference on how the session plays out. Got any funny stories or total Confederate disasters? Please, we want to hear from you. Thanks again for listening to the SimTech podcast, and until next time, stay creative, stay calm when the Confederate goes rogue, and keep smart. See you soon.